The probe appeared in Earth's sky without warning. It hung there above the Pacific Ocean, a silver sphere the size of a small moon. People across the world stopped what they were doing and stared up at it. Some took pictures. Others prayed. Most simply felt afraid. Inside the United Nations building in New York, Ambassador Kyung-soo sat in a packed emergency meeting. Every nation on Earth had sent representatives. The room buzzed with nervous voices speaking dozens of languages. Kyung-soo stayed quiet. He had been waiting for this day for 30 years. The probe began transmitting. Every television, radio, and computer screen on Earth suddenly showed the same image. A tall alien creature appeared, its skin covered in scales that shimmered like oil on water. Its eyes were yellow and cold. When it spoke, the words came out in perfect English, Chinese, Spanish, Arabic, and every other human language at once. "People of Earth," the creature said, "I am High Arbiter Velkesh of the Galactic Council. We have discovered your world. You are now part of our territory. You will submit to Council authority. You have one rotation of your planet to accept our terms. If you refuse, we will take corrective action. Choose wisely." The message ended. The probe went silent. Around the world, chaos erupted. Some leaders wanted to surrender immediately. Others called for war. A few suggested trying to negotiate. The arguments went on for hours. Finally, Kyung-soo stood up. The room fell silent. Everyone knew him as a patient diplomat, but few knew his real history. Before becoming an ambassador, he had been a military intelligence officer. He had spent decades studying the stars, preparing for first contact. "We will not surrender," Kyung-soo said quietly, "and we will not negotiate with beings who speak to us like we are animals. We will give them our answer. But first we must show them who we really are." While the meeting continued, Kyung-soo sent a single encrypted message. It went to a secret facility hidden beneath the ice of Antarctica. There, Admiral Taeho received the message and smiled grimly. He had been waiting for this too. Taeho was an old man now, nearly 60 years old. His hair had gone completely gray. Deep lines marked his weathered face, but his eyes were sharp and focused. He stood in the command center of Operation Darkstar, a program so secret that most governments did not even know it existed. 30 years ago, a small alien craft had crashed in the Australian outback. Most of the world never learned about it. The craft was badly damaged, but some of its technology still worked. A team of scientists spent years studying it. They learned how the aliens traveled between stars. They learned how their weapons functioned. They learned that humanity was not alone in the universe and that first contact might not be friendly. Taeho had been a young officer then. He convinced the world's major powers to work together in secret. They built shipyards in the asteroid belt where no one could see them. They trained crews in hidden bases on the far side of the moon. They turned humanity's best scientists into weapons, engineers. The most brilliant of those scientists was Dr. Hae-won. She was a thin woman in her 40s with short, black hair and glasses that were always slightly crooked. She rarely smiled and had trouble talking to people about anything except physics. But when it came to understanding alien technology, she was a genius. "Admiral," Hae-won said, entering the command center, "all ships are ready. The quantum drives are charged. We can launch within the hour." Taeho nodded. He looked at the massive display screen showing Earth's defense fleet. 30 warships, each one bigger than an aircraft carrier. Ships that should not exist. Ships that humanity had built in secret while the world went about its daily life. The largest ship was called the Indomitable. Its captain was Jiwoo, a woman barely 30 years old. She had joined the program as a teenager, lying about her age to get in. Now she commanded the most powerful warship humanity had ever built. Jiwoo stood on her bridge, watching her crew run final checks. She was not tall, but she carried herself with absolute confidence. Her officers would follow her into hell itself if she asked. Many of them probably would before this was over. "Status report," Jiwoo ordered. "All systems green, Captain," her tactical officer replied. "Weapons armed. Shields at maximum. Quantum drive ready." Jiwoo allowed herself a small smile. She looked at the stars outside her viewport. Somewhere out there, the Council thought they ruled the galaxy. They were about to learn different. Back on Earth, the 24-hour deadline approached. News channels counted down the minutes. People gathered in streets and homes, waiting to hear what their leaders would say. Some wept, others stood defiant. Parents held their children close. Kyung-soo stood before a camera. Behind him, The leaders of every nation on Earth stood together for the first time in history. The image would be transmitted to the alien probe. He took a deep breath and spoke 3 words in a clear, calm voice. "Come and take." The message traveled up to the probe and beyond, shooting out into deep space. It reached the Council's nearest military station within hours. Commander Thrazel received it and read the translation carefully. Then he read it again. Thrazel was a professional soldier. He had fought in a dozen conquest campaigns. He knew how subjugation worked. The primitive species always either surrendered immediately or begged for mercy. They never ever challenged the Council. He forwarded the message to High Arbiter Velkesh. The response came back quickly. "How amusing," Velkesh said. "These primitives have spirit, break it. Take a subjugation fleet and teach them the cost of defiance. Make it painful, make it memorable. Make sure every other species in the galaxy hears what happens when you refuse the Council." Thrazel assembled his fleet. 50 warships, more than enough to destroy any resistance. His soldiers were experienced and well-armed. His ships carried weapons that could crack planets. This would be over in days, perhaps hours. As his fleet approached Earth's solar system, Thrazel reviewed the intelligence reports. The humans had primitive nuclear weapons and basic space travel. They still fought each other in petty wars. They were divided into hundreds of competing groups. They posed no real threat. His fleet crossed Neptune's orbit. Earth's sun was a bright point ahead. Soon they would be close enough to begin the attack. Thrazel allowed himself to relax slightly. This really would be easy. Then his sensor officer shouted in alarm, "Commander, I'm detecting multiple quantum drive signatures. They're coming from near the 4th planet." Thrazel stared at his displays. That was impossible. The humans should not have quantum drives. They should barely have rockets. But the sensors did not lie. Energy signatures were blooming across his screen. Not 1 or 2, dozens. Near Mars, the human fleet decloaked. 30 warships materialized out of nothing, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight. They arranged themselves in perfect battle formation. On each ship's hull, painted in letters 10 meters high, was a single word in every human language. The word was simple. The word was clear. The word was "No, Admiral Tejo," broadcast on all frequencies. His face appeared on every Council ship's screen. He looked tired and sad, but his voice was steel. "You came to our home. You threatened our children. You demanded we kneel. We have an answer for you. You want Earth? Come take it. We'll be waiting." In the Indomitable's cockpit, a young fighter pilot named Dalneum checked her weapons one last time. She was small and quick, with sharp eyes and faster reflexes. She had trained her entire adult life for this moment. "All fighters, this is Captain Jiwoo." The comm system crackled. "Prepare to launch. Show them what humans can do. Show them why they should have left us alone." Dalneum grinned fiercely. She pushed her throttle forward. Her fighter shot out into space, followed by hundreds of others. Behind them, the warships of Earth's fleet powered up their weapons. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin. Commander Thrazel stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The impossible was happening right before his eyes. 30 human warships hung in space where there should be nothing but primitive satellites and debris. Each ship radiated energy signatures that matched Council military technology. Some readings even suggested improvements over standard Council designs. "Analysis," Thrazel ordered, keeping his voice calm despite the ice forming in his stomach. His tactical officer worked frantically at her console. "Commander, these vessels possess quantum drive capability. Their shield harmonics are unusual but functional. Weapon signatures indicate directed energy weapons and projectile systems. Sir, they should not have this technology. Our intelligence reports indicated primitive nuclear capability at best." Thrazel had commanded fleets for 20 years. He had seen battle against pirates, rebels, and defiant species, but he had never seen anything like this. A species supposedly centuries away from spaceflight had produced a battle fleet that looked ready for war. "Signal the High Arbiter," he said. "Inform him that the situation has changed significantly." Before his communications officer could respond, the human ships began moving. They did not charge forward in a disorganized rush. They moved with precision, arranging themselves in a complex formation that suggested extensive tactical training. Whoever commanded those ships knew what they were doing. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Jiwoo watched the Council fleet closely. She stood with her hands clasped behind her back, appearing calm and confident. Inside, her heart pounded. This was the moment everything had been building toward. Years of training, Years of preparation. Years of hoping they would never actually need to use these ships. "Captain, we have target lock on all enemy vessels," her weapons officer reported. "Hold fire," Jiwoo said. "Let them make the first move. Admiral Taeho wants this to be clear. We did not start this." Lieutenant Delneem sat in her fighter cockpit, floating in the black between the two fleets. Around her, hundreds of other human pilots waited in their small, agile craft. They had trained for combat in simulators that used stolen Council tactical data. They knew how Council ships fought. They knew their weaknesses. Delneem checked her weapons status for the 10th time. Missiles armed. Railgun loaded. Energy shields at full power. Her fighter was smaller than a Council shuttle, but it packed firepower that would surprise them. Dr. Haewon had made sure of that. "All fighters, remain in position." Captain Jiwoo's voice came through the comm. "We wait for their move. Stay sharp." On the Council flagship, Thrasil received his orders from High Arbiter Velkesh. The message was brief and clear. Destroy the human fleet, show no mercy, make an example that would echo across the galaxy for centuries. Thrasil felt a moment of doubt. Something about this situation felt wrong. The humans had been ready for them. They had built a fleet in secret. They were not acting like a primitive species facing inevitable destruction. They were acting like soldiers preparing for battle. But orders were orders. He had a duty to the Council. "All ships, this is Commander Thrasil. Target the human vessels. Prepare to fire on my command. We will show them the price of defiance." His fleet spread out, moving into attack formation. 50 warships, each one tested in combat. Each one crewed by experienced soldiers. The Council military was the most powerful force in known space. These humans, no matter how prepared they thought they were, would learn that quickly. Fire. Energy beams lanced across space. Missiles streaked toward human ships. The Council fleet opened fire with overwhelming force, enough firepower to crack a moon. The humans would be destroyed in seconds, but the human ships did not explode. Their shields flared bright as they absorbed the incoming fire. And then the humans returned fire. Jiwoo smiled coldly. "Now hit them with everything." The Indomitable fired first. Its main cannon, a weapon Dr. Haewon had spent 5 years perfecting, released a focused beam of antimatter. The shot crossed the distance in a fraction of a second and struck a Council cruiser dead center. The alien ship's shields collapsed instantly. Its hull tore apart in a brilliant explosion. All along the human line, ships opened fire. Beams and projectiles filled the space between the fleets. More Council ships took hits. Their shields, designed to stop conventional weapons, struggled against the modified human technology. Fighter wings. "You are clear to engage," Jiwoo ordered. Delneem let out a wild yell and pushed her throttle to maximum. Her fighter shot forward, accelerating to speeds that would have crushed a normal human. But Delneem and her fellow pilots had been enhanced with genetic modifications and cybernetic implants. They could handle forces that would kill unmodified people. She targeted a Council destroyer and fired her missiles. They spiraled through space, their guidance systems tracking the enemy ship as it tried to evade. The missile struck home, overwhelming the destroyer's point defense systems. Explosions rippled across its hull. Around her, hundreds of other fighters engaged the Council fleet. They moved fast and unpredictably, making themselves hard targets. Council ships tried to track them but struggled to hit the small, agile craft. Thrasil watched in growing horror as his fleet took heavy casualties. Within the first 5 minutes, he had lost 8 ships. 8. Against a species that should not even have space travel. "Return fire. Concentrate on their flagship," he ordered. His fleet focused its weapons on the Indomitable. Dozens of energy beams converged on the massive human ship. Its shields glowed white-hot, absorbing incredible amounts of damage, but the shields held. Jiwoo felt her ship shake under the assault. Damage reports came in from multiple decks, but the Indomitable had been built to take punishment. Its shields were layered and redundant. Dr. Haewon had designed them to withstand exactly this kind of focused fire. Engineering. "Shield status," Jiwoo called. "Shields at 60% and holding, Captain," came the response. "We can take more." "Good. Target their command ship." Full power to main cannon, the battle raged for hours. Both sides took losses, but the Council fleet was suffering far more. The humans fought with a ferocity that shocked Thrasil. They used tactics no civilized military would attempt, treating their own lives as expendable if it meant destroying an enemy ship. He watched as a damaged human destroyer, its shields down and hull breached, deliberately rammed into one of his frigates. Both ships exploded in a massive fireball. The human crew had sacrificed themselves to take an enemy ship with them. What kind of species did this? What kind of people valued victory over their own survival? Admiral Tejo watched the battle from his command center deep beneath Antarctica. He saw every ship lost, every life sacrificed. Each one hurt. These were his people, his responsibility, but he showed no emotion on his face. The crews needed him to be strong. "Admiral, the Council fleet is breaking formation," his tactical officer reported. "They are attempting to withdraw." Tejo nodded slowly. "Let them. We need survivors to carry the message." Captain Jiwoo received the order and felt a moment of frustration. They could pursue the fleeing ships. They could destroy the entire Council fleet. But she understood the strategy. Dead enemies told no tales. Survivors spread fear. All ships cease fire. Let them run. Fighter wings returned to carriers. Dal Nim pulled her fighter back, watching as Council ships fled toward the edge of the solar system. Her fighter was battered and scarred, but she had survived. Looking around at the debris field that now littered the space near Mars, she saw the wrecks of ships from both sides. This was the price of freedom. Thrazel's flagship limped away, followed by only 12 other surviving ships. He had lost 37 vessels, 37 crews, thousands of soldiers, all to a species that should not have been able to fight back. He recorded a message for the High Arbiter. His voice was grim. "High Arbiter, this is Commander Thrazel. The subjugation has failed. The humans are not primitive. They possess military technology comparable to our own. They fight with skill and determination. Sir, we need reinforcements. We need the Grand Fleet. This will not be an easy conquest." As his damaged ship fled toward Council space, Thrazel looked back at Earth's sun, now a distant point of light. The humans had won this battle. But the war had only just begun. The news of the defeat spread through Council space like a shockwave. High Arbiter Velkesh sat in his private chambers, watching Commander Thrazel's battle report for the third time. Each viewing made his rage burn hotter. Impossible. The word kept echoing in his mind. A primitive species should not be able to defeat a Council fleet. The humans should have been easy prey. Yet somehow they had destroyed 37 warships and sent the survivors running. Velkesh was ancient by any species standards. He had led the Council for over 2 centuries. In that time, he had overseen the conquest of 43 different species. Not one had successfully resisted. Some had tried to fight. All had failed. The Council's military might was absolute, or so he had believed. He activated his communication system and called an emergency session of the Council. Representatives from dozens of species appeared as holographic projections around him. All wore expressions of shock and concern. "The humans must be destroyed," Velkesh declared without preamble. "They represent a threat to everything the Council has built. If we allow them to defy us, others will follow. We must respond with overwhelming force." One of the Council members, a scholar named Nixara, spoke up hesitantly. She was young compared to most Council members, having joined only a decade ago. Her species valued knowledge and learning above conquest. "Perhaps we should consider negotiation," Nixara suggested. "If the humans possess this level of technology, they might be valuable allies rather than subjects." Velkesh turned his cold eyes on her. "The Council does not negotiate with primitives. We rule or we destroy. There is no third option. I am mobilizing the Grand Fleet. This discussion is over." The other Council members remained silent. Most agreed with Velkesh. A few, like Nixara, had private doubts, but none dared voice them openly. To question the High Arbiter was to invite political destruction. After the meeting ended, Nixara remained in her quarters, thinking. She had studied human transmissions that the Council had intercepted. Their art, their music, their literature. These were not mindless primitives. They were creative, intelligent beings with rich cultures. She made a decision that would change her life. Using encrypted channels, she sent a message toward Earth. It was a risk that could cost her everything. But she had to try. On Earth, Dr. Haywan received the transmission in her laboratory. She read it carefully, adjusting her crooked glasses as she examined the data. An alien scientist wanted to talk, wanted to share information, wanted to help prevent total war. Haywan forwarded the message to Admiral Tejo. He read it with his usual calm expression, but his mind raced. This could be a trap, or it could be an opportunity. "What do you think?" Tejo asked Haywan during their secure video call. I think she is genuine, Heywan replied. Her message includes technical data about Council fleet movements. Information that could help us. If it is a trap, it is an elaborate one. Have Ambassador Kyung-soo respond. Carefully. See what she wants. While diplomacy happened in secret, humanity prepared for war openly. Every nation on Earth contributed resources. Factories that once made cars now made weapons. Scientists who studied medicine now studied shield technology. The entire human species mobilized as one. Captain Jiwoo oversaw repairs to the Indomitable. The battle had damaged her ship, but the shipyards in orbit worked day and night to fix it. More than that, they were building additional vessels. Humanity would not face the next attack with just 30 ships. Lieutenant Dalneem spent her time training new fighter pilots. Thousands of volunteers wanted to join the fight. She taught them everything she knew, pushing them hard. Many washed out. Those who remained became the best pilots humanity had ever produced. Why do they fight so hard? One of the new pilots asked Dalneem after a brutal training session. The odds are terrible. We might all die. Dalneem smiled slightly. Because we are human. We do not accept defeat. We do not surrender. We fight for our homes, our families, our freedom. That is who we are. In Council space, the Grand Fleet assembled. 3,000 warships drawn from 100 worlds. It was the largest military force the Council had ever gathered. Soldiers and crews came from dozens of species, all serving under the Council's banner. One of those soldiers was Captain Rickson. He commanded a destroyer in the Grand Fleet. He was young for his rank, having earned his position through skill and courage in several campaigns. But this campaign felt different. Rickson had read the reports from the first battle. He had studied the human tactics. These people fought desperately, yes, but also cleverly. They used strategies the Council would never consider. They took risks that seemed insane but somehow worked. He had also listened to intercepted human transmissions. He heard mothers comforting children, teachers instructing students, artists creating beauty even as war approached. These were not monsters. They were people fighting for survival. Rickson kept these thoughts to himself. Doubt was dangerous in the military, but the thoughts remained, growing stronger each day. Commander Thrazul also prepared for the coming battle. He had been given a new fleet to command, replacement ships for those lost. High Arbiter Velkesh had personally ordered him to lead the assault on Earth. This time there will be no mistakes, Velkesh had told him. You will destroy every human ship. You will bombard their world until they beg for mercy, and then you will continue until nothing remains. Understood? Thrazul had accepted the orders. But privately he felt uneasy. He had fought the humans once. He knew they would not go down easily. And something about this whole situation troubled him deeply. The Council was powerful, yes, but power without wisdom was dangerous. He had always believed the Council brought order to chaos. Now he wondered if they had become the chaos they claimed to oppose. Back on Earth, Lieutenant Dalneem flew a reconnaissance mission to the edge of the solar system. Her sensors picked up massive energy readings in deep space. She enhanced the signal and her blood ran cold. Ships. Thousands of them. The Grand Fleet was coming. She transmitted the data back to Earth and began the long journey home. Behind her, the Council Armada advanced like a swarm of locusts, blotting out the stars. Admiral Tae-ho received Dalneem's report and studied the numbers carefully. 3,000 ships. Maybe more. It was exactly what he had feared. The first battle had been a test. This would be the real war. He called a meeting of his senior staff. Captain Jiwoo, Dr. Haewon, Ambassador Kyung-soo and others gathered around the tactical display showing the approaching fleet. We cannot win a straight fight, Jiwoo said bluntly. Even with our new ships, we are outnumbered 20-1. Then we do not fight straight, Haewon replied. She brought up a holographic map of the solar system. We have had 3 months to prepare. The entire solar system is now a weapon. We have defense platforms at every major orbit. Minefields. Automated gun emplacements. Traps everywhere. We make them fight for every inch of space, Tae-ho said. We bleed them slowly. We make the cost so high that they question whether Earth is worth it. Kyung-soo cleared his throat. I have been in contact with Scholar Nixara. She tells me there is growing dissent in the Council. Many younger members question this war. If we can survive long enough, the Council might fracture from within. That is a big if, Jiwoo said. Yes, Tae-ho agreed. But it is the only chance we have. We hold the line. We make them pay for every victory. We show them that humanity will never stop fighting, and we hope that somewhere in their ranks enough soldiers decide they do not want to die for a pointless war. The staff dispersed to make final preparations. Jiwoo remained behind with Taeho for a moment. "Sir, be honest with me. What are our real chances?" Taeho looked at her with tired eyes. "Mathematically, almost zero. But humans have never been good at accepting mathematics. We do the impossible when we must. That will have to be enough." 2 weeks later, the Grand Fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system. High Arbiter Velkesh himself commanded from his flagship, a massive vessel larger than some moons. He broadcast a message to Earth, "Humans, you defied the Council once. You will not do so again. Surrender now, and some of you may survive as slaves. Refuse, and every man, woman, and child on your world will die. You have one final chance. Choose." Admiral Taeho transmitted his response. He spoke calmly, without anger or fear. "No." Just that one word. Simple and final. Velkesh smiled coldly. "So be it. Commander Thrizzle, begin the assault. Spare nothing. Show no mercy." The Grand Fleet advanced toward Earth. The greatest battle in human history was about to begin. The Grand Fleet crossed Neptune's orbit in a massive formation that stretched across millions of kilometers. 3,000 warships advancing together created a sight that had never been seen before in this part of space. Commander Thrizzle watched from his flagship, feeling the weight of command pressing down on him. His tactical officer monitored the sensor readings. "Commander, we are detecting energy signatures throughout the system. The humans have placed weapons platforms at multiple orbital positions." "How many?" Thrizzle asked. "Hundreds, sir. Possibly thousands. They have fortified the entire solar system." Thrizzle felt a chill. The humans had been busy during the 3 months since the first battle. They had not wasted time celebrating their victory. They had prepared for what came next. The fleet passed Uranus. Nothing happened. They continued toward Saturn. Still nothing. The silence was unnerving. Then they reached the asteroid belt between Jupiter and Mars. That was when the humans struck. Asteroids that had seemed natural suddenly activated. They were not asteroids at all. They were massive bombs, each one packed with antimatter. Dr. Haewon had spent months preparing this surprise. The explosions tore through the Council fleet's vanguard. Dozens of ships vanished in brilliant flashes of light. Shields meant to stop energy weapons could not protect against the sheer kinetic force of exploding asteroids. "Evasive maneuvers," Thrizzle ordered. "All ships scatter!" The Grand Fleet broke formation, ships moving in every direction to avoid the hidden mines. In the chaos, the human fleet attacked. Captain Jiwoo led the charge. The Indomitable and 60 other human warships appeared from behind Jupiter's moons where they had been hiding. They fired everything they had into the scattered Council formation. "Target their command ships," Jiwoo ordered. "Hit them hard and fast, then retreat to the next defensive line." The human ships struck like sharks, attacking isolated Council vessels before they could reform their defensive positions. More Council ships exploded. The careful formation that had looked so impressive was now working against them. Lieutenant Dalnim led her fighter squadron through the confusion. They targeted Council destroyers, hitting their engines and weapon systems. The small human fighters were hard to track in the chaos, and they knew exactly where to strike for maximum damage. Captain Rickson, commanding his destroyer in the Council fleet, watched the battle with growing unease. The humans were not fighting like a desperate species facing extinction. They were fighting like professional soldiers executing a carefully planned strategy. Around him, Council ships panicked. Officers shouted contradictory orders. Some ships tried to advance while others retreated. The Grand Fleet, so impressive on approach, was falling apart under pressure. Rickson made a decision. He broadcast on the emergency channel. "All ships near my position, form up on me. Establish a defensive perimeter. We need to organize before we can effectively fight back." Several nearby captains, grateful for someone taking charge, followed his orders. They created a small pocket of organized resistance in the chaos. High Arbiter Velkesh watched the battle from his flagship, deep within the fleet's center. His rage built with each ship lost. This was not how conquest worked. The inferior species was supposed to be crushed immediately. "Commander Thrizzle, restore order immediately," he demanded. "Use whatever force necessary. I want these humans destroyed." Thrizzle was trying. He issued commands attempting to rally his scattered fleet. Slowly, the Council ships began to reform. Their superior numbers were still overwhelming. Despite the losses, they had enough ships to win through sheer force, but the humans were not done. As the Council fleet regrouped, automated defense platforms hidden throughout the asteroid belt activated. Thousands of them, each one armed with missiles and energy weapons. They opened fire simultaneously. The Council fleet found itself under attack from every direction. It was like fighting in a giant trap. Everywhere they turned, more human weapons waited. On Earth, Admiral Tae-ho coordinated the defense from his command center. Multiple screens showed different parts of the battle. He watched ships die on both sides, each loss a wound to his soul, but he kept his voice steady, issuing orders with calm precision. Phase 2. Execute, he ordered. The human fleet, which had been harassing the Council forces, suddenly retreated. They pulled back toward Mars, moving at maximum speed. The Council fleet, bloodied but still powerful, pursued. They were flying into another trap. Near Mars, humanity had built its greatest weapon. It was not a ship or a bomb. It was a network of satellites, each one containing a powerful energy projector. Together, they formed a massive directed energy array that could focus incredible power on a single point. Dr. Hae-won had designed the system personally. She called it the Hammer of Sol. Now she prepared to use it. All satellites are aligned, she reported to Tae-ho. Ready to fire on your command. Wait until they are committed, Tae-ho said. We only get one shot at this. The Council fleet closed in on the retreating humans. Velkesh, sensing victory, ordered all ships to accelerate. They would crush the human fleet against Mars and end this war. Commander Thrazul felt uneasy about the pursuit. Something was wrong. The humans were too organized. This retreat felt planned, but his orders were clear. Sir, his tactical officer said nervously, I am detecting a massive energy buildup near Mars. The readings are enormous. Thrazul looked at his displays and his blood froze. He saw the trap, but it was too late to stop. Now, Admiral Tae-ho said quietly. The Hammer of Sol fired. Thousands of energy beams converged into a single devastating lance of power that tore through space. It struck the center of the Council fleet with the force of a dying star. Hundreds of Council ships simply ceased to exist. Their shields meant nothing against such concentrated power. The beam carved a hole through the fleet, destroying everything in its path. Captain Jiwoo, watching from a safe distance, felt her breath catch. Even knowing what was coming, the weapon's power was terrifying. This was what desperation had driven humanity to create, a weapon that could destroy fleets. The Council fleet reeled. They had lost over 1,000 ships in seconds. The survivors broke formation completely, some trying to retreat, others advancing in confused fury. Lieutenant Dal-Nim and her fighters swept back into the battle, hitting damaged ships before they could recover. The tide was turning. On Velkesh's flagship, alarms blared. His ship had been near the edge of the weapon's effect, but the shockwave had damaged multiple systems. Around him, officers scrambled to restore order. For the first time in his long life, Velkesh felt fear. These humans were not just fighting. They were winning. Scholar Nixara, who had been aboard Velkesh's flagship as an observer, saw her chance. She accessed the communication system and broadcast a message to the entire Council fleet. This is Scholar Nixara to all Council forces. The High Arbiter has led us into a massacre. We are dying for his pride, not for any noble cause. The humans fight only to defend their home. We are the aggressors here. I call upon all Council ships to cease fire and withdraw. Velkesh spun toward her, fury in his eyes. Traitor! Guards, seize her! But the guards hesitated. They had heard her words. They had watched thousands of their comrades die. Some of them were beginning to wonder if she was right. Throughout the fleet, her message sparked debate. Some captains immediately agreed and ordered their ships to stand down. Others remained loyal to Velkesh. The Grand Fleet began to fracture from within. Captain Rickson heard the broadcast and felt something break free inside him. He had been wrestling with his doubts for weeks. Now someone with more authority than him had spoken the truth he had been afraid to voice. He opened a channel to his crew. This is Captain Rickson. I'm ordering all weapons powered down. We will not fire on the humans unless fired upon first. I will not participate in genocide. His crew, many of whom had private doubts of their own, obeyed with visible relief. More ships followed his example. Within minutes, dozens of Council vessels ceased fighting. The Grand Fleet was tearing itself apart, with some ships still attacking while others refused to fight. Admiral Tejo watched this development with carefully hidden hope. He opened a channel to Ambassador Kyung-soo. Contact the council ships that have stood down. Offer them safe passage away from the battle. Tell them we will not fire on those who choose peace. Kyung-soo smiled. This was the moment he had been working toward. Immediately, Admiral. The battle continued, but now it was three-sided. Humans fighting council loyalists, council reformers refusing to fight, and in the middle, Velkesh screaming orders that fewer and fewer ships obeyed. Commander Thrazel faced his own choice. He could continue following orders from a leader who was clearly losing control, or he could do what he knew was right. He looked at his tactical display, seeing the chaos, the death, the pointless destruction. Then he made his decision. All ships under my direct command cease fire, he ordered. We are standing down. With the military commander joining the rebellion, the tide turned completely. The Grand Fleet was no longer an army. It was a collection of confused, divided forces fighting each other as much as they fought the humans. And in the middle of it all, High Arbiter Velkesh realized he had lost. Not just the battle, everything. High Arbiter Velkesh stood on his flagship bridge watching his empire crumble. The massive view screen showed chaos. Council ships firing on each other, human vessels holding position waiting, and worst of all, his own commanders ignoring his orders. Traitors, he hissed. All of them traitors. Scholar Nixara stood under guard nearby, but she showed no fear. They are not traitors, High Arbiter. They are soldiers who finally opened their eyes. This war was wrong from the beginning. Velkesh turned his cold gaze on her. You dare lecture me? I have ruled the council for 2 centuries. I have brought order to dozens of chaotic worlds. I have built the greatest civilization this galaxy has ever known. You built an empire on slavery and fear, Nixara replied. The humans have shown us what that empire truly is. A hollow shell that collapses the moment someone has the courage to resist. Velkesh raised his hand to strike her, but his guards did not move to help him. They simply stood there, weapons lowered, watching. The realization hit him. Even his personal guards no longer obeyed. He stumbled back to his command chair and activated his personal terminal. If his commanders would not obey, he would take matters into his own hands. His flagship carried the most powerful weapon in the council arsenal. A planet killer, designed to crack worlds that resisted too strongly. He would use it on Earth. He would destroy the human homeworld and everyone on it. Then the others would remember why they feared him. Activate the Void Breaker, he commanded. Target Earth. On the human side, sensor operators detected the massive energy buildup immediately. Admiral Tejo looked at the readings and understood what was happening. The flagship is charging a superweapon, his tactical officer reported. Power signatures indicate planet-destroying capability. Time to firing, 4 minutes. Tejo felt ice flood his veins. They had won the battle but might still lose everything. He opened channels to all human ships, all vessels, converge on the council flagship. We must destroy it before it fires. This is our last chance. Captain Jiwoo received the order and immediately changed course. The Indomitable and every other human warship that could move turned toward Velkesh's massive flagship. But they were too far away. Even at maximum speed, they could not reach it in time. Commander Thrazel saw what was happening. He understood what Velkesh intended. The Mad Arbiter would destroy Earth and everyone on it just to salvage his pride. Thrazel could not allow it. He opened a channel to Captain Rickson and several other reformist commanders who had joined the rebellion. The flagship must be stopped, he said simply. Will you help me? Rickson did not hesitate. Yes, what do we do? We attack it ourselves, now. 20 council ships broke formation and accelerated toward Velkesh's flagship. Their former comrades, now their target. They opened fire. The flagship's shields absorbed the first barrage, but the continuous fire began to weaken them. Velkesh screamed orders, demanding his remaining loyal ships protect him. Some moved to intervene, firing on Thrazel's forces. The space around the flagship became a confused melee. Council ships fighting each other while the humans raced to get into range. 3 minutes to firing, the tactical officer reported. Lieutenant Dal Neem, flying her fighter at maximum acceleration, saw what needed to happen. The big ships could not get there in time. But fighters could. She opened a channel to her squadron. All pilots, follow me. We are going to stop that weapon. How? One pilot asked. We do not have the firepower to damage a flagship. Dal Neem smiled grimly. We do not need to damage it. We just need to fly into the weapon emitter and block it when it fires. Our explosions should disrupt the beam. There was silence on the channel. Everyone understood what she was proposing. A suicide mission. But then, one by one, the other pilots acknowledged. With you to the end, Lieutenant. Captain Jiwoo heard Dalneem's plan over the tactical network. She wanted to order her to stand down to find another way, for there was no other way. Lieutenant Dalneem, Jiwoo said, her voice tight with emotion. Thank you for your service. All of you. Humanity will remember. Dalneem and her squadron accelerated toward the flagship. Point defense weapons tried to stop them, but the fighters were too fast, too agile. They weaved through the defensive fire, taking losses but continuing forward. On Earth, people watched the live feed from the battle. Parents held their children. Soldiers stood at attention. Everyone knew what was happening. Everyone understood the sacrifice being made for them. Admiral Taiho watched Dalneem's fighter racing toward its target. He had sent so many people to their deaths during this war. Each one weighed on his soul. But he knew they had chosen this. They fought because they believed in something worth dying for. 1 minute to firing, the tactical officer said quietly. Dalneem could see the weapon port now, a massive opening on the flagship's bow. Energy crackled around it as the planet killer charged. She pushed her fighter to absolute maximum speed. Behind her, the other fighters in her squadron followed. They would all die. But Earth would live. Then something unexpected happened. Captain Jiwoo, watching from the Indomitable, made a decision. She ordered her ship to maximum emergency speed, pushing the engines far beyond their safety limits. Captain, the engines will not survive this, her engineering officer protested. They do not need to survive. They just need to get us there. All power to engines, now! The Indomitable shot forward with impossible speed. Jiwoo aimed her ship directly at Velkesh's flagship. She would ram it. Her massive warship would do far more damage than a squadron of fighters. Captain, what are you doing? Admiral Taiho demanded over the comm. Saving those pilots, Jiwoo replied calmly, and ending this war. It has been an honor serving with you, Admiral. She cut the connection before he could argue. She turned to her crew. Anyone who wants to evacuate has 30 seconds to reach the escape pods. No one moved. Her crew stood at their stations, proud and ready. Then let us finish this together. The Indomitable crossed the final distance in seconds. Velkesh's flagship tried to evade, but the massive vessel was too slow. Jiwoo aimed for the weapon port, where the planet killer was reaching full charge. Lieutenant Dalneem saw the Indomitable coming and understood. She pulled her fighter up at the last moment, clearing the way. The other fighters followed her. The Indomitable struck the flagship at full speed. The impact was catastrophic. Both ships' shields failed instantly. Metal tore like paper. The Indomitable's quantum drive, already pushed beyond its limits, exploded with the force of a small star. The explosion consumed both vessels completely. High Arbiter Velkesh, Scholar Nixara, Captain Jiwoo, and thousands of others died instantly. The planet-killer weapon, on the verge of firing, detonated in its housing. The combined explosions created a miniature supernova that briefly outshone every other light in the solar system. When the light faded, both flagships were gone. Nothing remained but debris and radiation. The battle stopped. Every ship, human and council alike, simply stopped fighting. The sheer scale of the destruction stunned everyone into silence. Admiral Taiho stood motionless in his command center, staring at the display. Captain Jiwoo was gone. Scholar Nixara, who had risked everything for peace, was gone. So many others, all gone in an instant, but Earth still stood. Humanity survived. Commander Thrazel broadcast a message to all remaining council ships. This is Commander Thrazel. High Arbiter Velkesh is dead. The war is over. All council forces will stand down immediately. We will withdraw from this system and begin negotiations for a lasting peace. He paused, then added, The humans have earned our respect. Let us not waste more lives in a war that should never have begun. Slowly, the council ships powered down their weapons. The humans did the same. Lieutenant Dalneem flew her damaged fighter back toward the fleet, tears streaming down her face. Captain Jiwoo had saved her life and the lives of her entire squadron. She would never forget that. Ambassador Kyung-soo immediately opened diplomatic channels with Commander Thrazel and Captain Rickson. There was much to discuss, much to negotiate, but for the first time, both sides were willing to talk instead of fight. On Earth, people watched the battle end and wept with relief and grief. They had won, but the cost had been terrible. Thousands of soldiers dead, Ships destroyed, cities damaged by falling debris, Captain Jiwoo, their hero, gone forever. But they were free. The Council would never threaten them again. Admiral Tae-ho addressed the world. His face was haggard, his voice heavy with exhaustion and sorrow. Today, humanity stood against an empire that believed itself invincible. We paid a terrible price. We lost friends, family, heroes. But we proved something that the galaxy needed to see. We proved that freedom is worth fighting for. That dignity cannot be taken, only surrendered. And we will never surrender. He paused, gathering his thoughts. Captain Jiwoo gave her life so that Earth could live. Scholar Nixara died trying to bring peace. Thousands of others, human and alien, paid the ultimate price. We honor them by building a better future. A future where species meet as equals, not as masters and slaves. That is the galaxy they died for. That is the galaxy we will create. Over the following months, negotiations continued. The Council, now led by Commander Thrazul and other reformers, agreed to disband. In its place, they would create the Galactic Coalition, an alliance of equals.